Sure, me.
Yes, he did.
You don't know what fair is. You can't make it look right. That's like any
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Hey, good evening. First, we want to acknowledge there's some really bad weather out there that has come through. We hope everybody is safe. We understand that there's some downed trees and power lines. So everybody be careful, everybody be safe, and God bless everybody in the St. Louis area because weather is nothing to be messed with. So welcome to Donnybrook this evening. Charlie Brennan's on a little out to pasture. No, sabbatical. He's taking some well-deserved time off, so you're stuck with me, Alvin, Reid, tonight. So joining me tonight, Wendy Wiese from KTRS, Bill McClellan, a founder from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, not a founder of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch of this show.
Boy, he's older.
Yeah.
He's older than I thought he was, man.
Another founder of this show, Reid Hartmann of Raw Story and also of KTRS, and Christine Byers, KSD 5 on our side, is joining us tonight in my chair, and it's looking much better. All right. Well, the fifth individual from a family has died that was involved in a crash involving the police in a pursuit. There are calls out from the NAACP to just revisit this whole police chase thing. And Christine, I mean, where are we now? I've always kind of been opposed to them, but does a tragic situation make it any different as far as you're concerned?
I mean, tragic situations always force the police to reevaluate their policies, force the public to look at them as well. But I will say, in the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, which are our two largest police departments in this area, they have the most restrictive policies when it comes to pursuits. They are only allowed to pursue for the most violent felonies. And in this situation, though, there's questions, and those questions, as far as I know from you, Reid Hartmann, Dan Isom has not been very transparent with explaining whether this was a pursuit or not. It was, from what we know, there were spike strips used on this car, and the police were not pursuing the car after they hit the spike strips and then caused the accident.
I think you got that from Bill.
Yeah, I think I was one.
No, I didn't say it, but I'm interested to hear what Bill is saying.
Well, you know, the family claims that they were told at the hospital that there was a pursuit with an unmarked car, and that is what Dan Isom has not been very clear about, the exact details.
You just said that an investigation continues.
Right, and it's been 9 days.
Right.
So one would think that an investigation could be concluded in that. But, you know, my thing on these police chases is I'm against them. I think they're wrong. But the only way you can get away from them is if you have, like, drones or an eye in the sky. And when the kids, they're almost always kids, when the kids are eventually caught, there have to be real consequences. And right now, there isn't. Like, there were 3 kids in the car that hit the spikes and ended up with, you know, 5 dead people. And one of the kids was released that night because juvenile said, well, his previous record isn't so bad. One of the kids is 17 years old, was held by juvenile, and the third they haven't caught yet. And, you know, if you're not going to chase, all these kids are going to run all the time. I mean, nobody will stop. You know, I mean, except, you know, people like me, old people. If you're in a stolen car and the police get behind you, you'll just run. So we have to say if there's no chases, we have to have consequences for those kids when they are caught.
The other issue with stolen cars is a lot of times they're stolen in a very violent way. That leads to pursuits also.
That's carjacking, you're saying.
Yeah, right. All right, but now this one was not that. I mean, this was a car that was stolen in Herculaneum. And I mean, look, best guess would be that the individuals involved probably were, this is not the first time that they had broken the law, but it seems to me that whatever the circumstances were that led to the situation, you were chasing people that stole a car.
Well,
and that's just not, I mean, that doesn't seem right to me.
I agree with you.
Did they use a gun in commission of the
You
crime?
know, I don't think they carjacked anybody. I think they just
Okay,
stole
so they
a car.
just stole the car. Well, the family feels forgotten. You know, that's what they're telling all of the local television stations, and I'm sure the Post-Dispatch too. But this has to stop. I'm just not sure how. It is drone technology. You mentioned drone technology, Christine. Can they launch a drone fairly quickly? And
I mean, the use of drones in police work is highly controversial.
Right.
It's been a debate for years and years. But we do have a helicopter. The problem is the helicopter can't be up 24/7.
right.
So police are also looking into alternative ways, new technologies, ways to track cars and get them later to avoid, you know, these types of
That's
pursuits.
right. I would think drone technology would not be as controversial as 5 members of a family.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do something.
Right.
But the thing is, you just had said the key words, get them later. In 2022, the technology, just all the information technology and the tracking, the car pinging, the phone pinging in the car, the question when you talk about, the first thing you got to think about is the safety of the officers and the safety of the public, including bystanders, not to mention whoever's being chased, who may or may not be guilty. And the fact is, the cost-benefit analysis, unless you're talking about a major felony, obviously if somebody's shooting up a school and running off, that's a little different. But as far as just generally a car theft, the idea that we should be risking all these lives when, in fact, they're almost always going to get the bad guy. Now, I agree with Bill's point about having some punishment, but the point is they're going to find him. And so the question is when. Now, obviously, if it's a carjacking in progress and you got a victim in the car, that's different. But for the most part, these are not... People get their adrenaline going, and they go after the chase, and it's too much like TV.
I will say this. I want to push back on the police here. The police are not giving us enough information about the circumstances that led to this. They're not giving us enough information about were they pursuing at the time this happened? Were they not? You know, so we're getting all kinds of different information. Why aren't the police telling us what led to this and why they did what they did?
Okay. Before we move on, I'll just say that, like, if you put the spikes in the road, that means somebody's running. They got to be running from something, so thus I would still label that as some kind of a chase. Well, speaking of the police, we have a new interim police chief. Lieutenant Colonel Mark Sack is now interim chief Mark Sack. And Bill, you know the gentleman. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know I don't know the gentleman well. I mean, my limited contact with him is he is not an old school guy. He looks like an old school guy because you say, hey, he's older and he's white. But you know, when I met with him, he made sure there was a PR person with him, and I think that he might fit in very well with Mayor Jones and Dan Isom, and he apparently can get along with Kim Gardner, you know, which is a good thing, and we're so dysfunctional. The only problem is I wish somebody in the group was a little more law and order. You know, I mean, I'm speaking from the 20th century here, but I think somebody in the system ought to be more law and order oriented.
Well, the Ethical Society of Police, and I'm not sure how much weight the word commendable carries anymore, but they were saying that he has a commendable record, I suppose, with internal affairs and some of his community policing, but that they will keep an eye on him and hold his feet to the fire.
And that's a lot. That's I'm guessing from what I'm hearing. And again, it's a lot of it's who you talk to and hearsay. I would say that this is to suggest this was not a popular choice among police officers, and maybe it's because he was
in
involved.
both unions?
Correct.
Okay.
More
The
in
other union hadn't made a statement.
The Police Officers Association
hasn't said anything. They haven't said
I think
anything.
it's fair to say
they have.
there's a real problem on that side of it. And again, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but if you're just talking about, you know, the kind of the dysfunction, this didn't really help.
So Lieutenant Colonel Michael Sack, who is now our interim chief, he has quite a history with the St. Louis Police Department and especially the police union. They strongly believe that he was behind the creation of Kim Gardner's exclusion list that does not allow certain officers to bring cases based on criteria that no one still to this day really understands or knows. That has not been a transparent process whatsoever. So they're very highly critical of him. Now, he and Chief Hayden have both denied that he was the one that created the list. Kim Gardner says he requested the list. So that left a bitter taste in a lot of the mouths of the rank and file. The police union president told me right after his appointment, you know, he doesn't have the most positive reputation among the rank and file, but a lot of that has to do with his time in internal affairs. But I mean,
I don't think the list is a bad thing. I think the process that the list went through was terrible. I mean, the lack of due process was an issue. The idea, some of the police officers are just going to be mad about the list. Now, again, I don't know enough about the guy, but you know,
well, does it
not
naturally follow that if you have had a stint in internal affairs that you're not going to be terribly popular with the rank and file?
I will say this: Chief Hayden served in internal affairs and it didn't come up when he was appointed.
Ron Claire, an old friend of mine, served in internal affairs, and you know, now one could say that, well, if you're popular when you come out of internal affairs, maybe you weren't doing your job so well. I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm not saying Ron Claire didn't do a good job. But
I'm not aware of anyone saying that anyone did a good job in internal affairs, but I am aware of people saying nothing about the job someone's done in internal affairs. And with Colonel Michael Sack, there is serious resentment there.
Yeah. I would say, like, you know, Alvin, you did a commendable job filling in for Charlie. I'd be kind of disappointed. Right, but I did call the man Mark Sack instead of Mike Sack, so I guess I earned my commendable on that.
I would like to add one more point to this, too. When the mayor announced that he had been appointed interim chief, her press staff only allowed reporters to ask 4 questions. There were more media outlets there than 4 media outlets, so we didn't all even get one question to ask. And my question was, what are the qualifications she is looking for that Michael Sack doesn't already have? He's the last finalist remaining from our first search for Hayden's replacement, and she said that she didn't want to talk about his qualifications and that he may very well end up being our chief of police after this second national process happens.
Well, that leads me into real quick that there'll be a national search, and an outside firm is going to help with it. Are you guys okay with that? And also, my parameter, if I was the mayor and I could pick a chief, this chief would not be from the city of St. Louis. It would not be from this area. It would not be from this state.
Right. And by the way, I think you've been very commendable so far. I'd like to commend you. No, I think national search is fine. I know people. It's certainly got to include local candidates, but there's no harm in doing a national search because this is a big job. It's a very difficult job to fill well, and there's no downside to me to a national search. I will say this whole thing is really exposing how bad a structure we have. When local control moved from the state to the city, there should have been a police board. Now, admittedly, the one in the county is pretty much not transparent and. But
if I could go back right to the national search and get away from the police board for a minute, I'm not so sure about a national search. I mean, it's you're reinventing the wheel all the time, and I mean I've seen it on newspapers where we get somebody from another paper, and it's somebody that we don't know, and it's always somebody who interviews well, and you know we've seen it in a number of private public companies in St. Louis, that you get somebody and in the end it was just somebody who interviewed well but wasn't rising where he or she was. So I kind of like the idea of you have a known universe of people.
I would like to add that there was a national search that did go on back at the end of last year that resulted in 6 finalists. 4 of them were from out of our area. They had nothing to do with the police department, and 2 internal candidates, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Sack and Lieutenant Colonel Larry O'Toole. And the 4 outside candidates never showed up to take the management test. So they were automatically disqualified from the running, which left the mayor's office with 2 people, 2 internal candidates to choose from.
Both older
So what does that tell you about the national search? That they get 4 guys who don't even, 4 people who don't even show up.
Okay, well, I don't think that means you never do a search. But I think a bigger point here, I started to say, I mean to be long-winded about, but the mayor is the one, I'm always long-winded. I mean, why should this be different? No, but the mayor is the person who's responsible. It seems to me the mayor ought to be able to choose her
If she's
person
at odds,
however
though,
she
with her
wants.
own personnel board.
Well, this whole personnel board, that's what I was saying. The personnel board structure makes no sense. If you have a police board that's public and meets publicly, which would be nice if they did in a county, that would be cool. I mean, you know, but absent that, if you're going to hold the mayor responsible, I say she just picks whoever she wants.
All right. I'll just add that twice, Bill, I got, like, you know, promoted and went to other papers in other cities, and I think I did a commendable job.
And you are the exception that makes the rule.
Yeah, well, dig your way out of that one.
Oh, speaking of digging your way out of stuff,
right.
there you go, Ray. Hey, broke ground on the new convention center.
Yeah, they did.
All right, $88 million later. I would say, in large part, to the county council chair, Rita Days. I'm happy that it's finally getting started. I'm not happy that down the line it's going to cost an extra $88 million.
That's such a ridiculous story, respectfully.
That's all right.
And that is, I have to tell you,
Not-
it is not commendable. No, look, Rita Her Days was having a battle to get an investment in North County, which is very difficult to do, especially during the Page administration. And they were, no question, there was a political battle. To listen to read the media coverage now, it was all Rita, like there was only one side of this argument, when in fact there was resistance on the part of the Page administration to doing what it had committed, in her view, to the late Hazel Irby to do. Okay, so that was a discussion. The idea that you can go back to this argument and the delay that it costs and project that going forward as if she would have known or could have predicted whether the bond market was going to go up or down is nonsense. I mean, that delay could have saved $88 million. There's no reason now to go back and say, well, if you hadn't delayed it, it would be $88 million. What if the bond market had gone the other way? You're going to give her a medal for delaying it? I mean, the idea that you can blame somebody for having an argument and then say, well, look what would have happened and go back in time is nuts.
But wait, Ray, if I have to buy a house, okay, my house is just, you know, falling apart.
Right.
All right, I have to buy a house, and I delay buying the house by 2 years, and the interest rate goes up, i.e. the cost of the house goes up, that's on me.
No,
okay?
it isn't.
Sure
This isn't. First of all, this is not analogous to that. But what if the interest rate went
I
down?
thought it was.
Actually, it is.
Okay, great. Well, then what if it goes
It's
down?
a commendable analogy, right?
Okay. Well, what if it went down? Are you smart for having waited? I mean, that's my
Yeah.
point. No, it's you're
out of your
lucky.
control.
It's luck.
I was lucky.
Yes.
Maybe
Right.
having waited.
That's
Well,
but
fine.
that's not luck.
That's
No,
fine.
this is what this is. It's bad luck that she delayed it. It could have been good luck.
$88
No.
million
It's bad luck to
is
us.
bad
It's
luck
bad
for
luck
us.
to
Well,
the
it would have been
county.
good luck to us if it had gone down. That's
Wow.
just
Well, it
ridiculous.
didn't go down.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're gonna like, it's just luck.
We're
I
going to
mean,
mention that the delay cost us $88 million.
But she did not cost us $88 million. They were having a legitimate argument that reasonable people can disagree. I happen to be on her side because I think it's a good project.
In terms of responsibility, Sam Page is part of this.
He's
so,
not responsible either. It's luck. You can't say that because an argument was protracted that therefore both parties or either party is responsible
So we
for
should
the
just
bond
look at
rates
the-
going up.
We should just
No.
look at the $88 million.
It's bad luck. It's what it exactly was.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's what it was.
It's
I mean,
bad luck
I'm not
that they
saying
were
it's
having a
good.
political
It's bad
skirmish
luck.
It
but-
cost us $88 million.
Except that
Bad
I'm
luck.
sure you would be praising him for saving us $88 million if it had gone down.
Well, the interest rates weren't going to go down. They were practically zero. Right?
Oh, that? She should have thought of that when they were having an
I'm
argument.
just saying, it wasn't like interest rates were 6% and have gone,
Good
you know.
point. Good point.
Yep.
All right. Well, speaking of money, so we're going to reduce the City Board of Aldermen to 14 from 28, and it seems like it's out there, and Reid didn't shoot it down, that everybody's going to double their pay. Wendy, the math doesn't add up to me.
The math does not add up, and I think that it's a really gutsy thing to do. I mean, it really is, because you're reducing the size of the Board of Aldermen. You are also adding the cost of assistance because of the reduction in the number of aldermen. And while you're at it, you're giving yourself you're doubling your pay. And as we've been, you know, we've seen in every sector of the economy, ask people whose workforce has been reduced if those who remain receive salary boost. No, actually, they just do a lot more work. So
Right,
good luck.
I'm not familiar with any newspaper
Exactly.
newsrooms or TV newsrooms where reporters have been laid off or let go or resigned and not replaced, and as a reward, the rest of us get raises. Never
That
happens.
doesn't happen.
Never
And Joe
happens.
Vaccaro was the one who was saying, no, this is cuckoo, and this isn't going to fly.
I don't think it is. I mean, I think it's probably been thrown out. I think if
But double?
You don't think it's cuckoo?
No, I think it's very bad optics politically and a bad idea. I think that if you want to look rationally, which nobody will in this case, at what city councils pay for comparable work in comparable markets, which arguably should be relevant. No city's going to want to give raises to its politicians. That goes without saying. And I do not think doubling their pay is a good idea. But I think the argument that it should stay, you know, that it must stay in perpetuity at 35 grand if Kansas City, for example, is paying 70. No, I don't, and there's a lot of other examples. It's a little low. But again, I'm not I think it's that may be just an opening offer, because I definitely do not think it should double overnight. No.
Well, maybe we should just say it's bad luck.
Yeah, there you go. It's bad
Just
luck.
bad luck.
It is
Maybe we
bad
should
luck
make
that
part of that
it was,
luck for the
it was certainly
citizens.
either bad
Just
luck
bad
or
luck.
bad judgment that I would
Just
speak
bad
up for it
luck.
at all.
You know, you're governing over a lot more people in Kansas City than you are in the city.
That is for
That
sure.
doesn't have anything to do
Well,
with it.
I think
of course
it
it
does.
does.
I think it does.
You don't do it per capita. I will say this: if you look around, which I had opportunity to do, still at 14, St. Louis has a larger city council than most cities, and it sure speaks to why 28 was a nutty number. I mean, that
part of the original proposal when this all came up, gosh, 9-10 years ago already, was talking about cost savings.
True.
So.
And I do think
That was 9 or 10 years ago.
That's true. And you know what? It's been bad luck.
That's right.
It's gone up.
Luck.
It's
Bad
gone up.
Yeah.
I just, you know, we have too many municipalities, okay? And a lot of them have city councils.
Right.
But we cannot reflect their pay on, you know, just some general number based on, you know, like maybe if you take out the number of people you represent, you know, if they came in and said like, oh, okay, the city council people in, you know, Kirkwood are going to make $70,000. They're like, well, no. I mean, you know, like.
It's generally you want to be, whether you're in business or government, and they are different. I mean, you generally, if you own a business, you keep track of what the industry pays nationally. I mean, you want to be competitive. You don't want to be the lowest. You don't want to say we got the lowest paid reporters in America. You know, at the same time, this isn't any different than that. If you're a city and other people are paying their mayors a certain amount or their council people a certain amount, the idea that there's some value in being the cheapest is not necessarily
Nobody's
right.
making these people run.
Yeah,
right?
that's, I'm just going to say.
I mean,
there's
you can
some-
make it volunteer if you wanted to, but I'm just saying if you want to do what they call best practices, you kind of keep up with what other folks are doing.
No,
Does
that's why
anyone know the-
CEOs' pays go up so much,
Yeah, I'm just
because
saying-
they all want to be in the top third.
Right.
Not the highest, but so it keeps.
I'm just saying-
Does
skyrocketing
anyone
up.
know the last time the Board of Aldermen did get a raise?
I think it was, and don't hold me to this, but I think it was like 8 years ago. I believe it was a while back.
There's a difference when you're
And
talking
I don't
the
know how far
substance.
35K went 8 years ago, but farther than it does now, but they don't need to double
The
their
su-
salary. All
absolutely.
right, we're down to our last three. All right. Wesley Bell is going to throw the book at people breaking in cars. You could be charged with a felony. I guess if you get to a certain amount of money, I think breaking in cars should not be a felony under any circumstance. Christine, you're a law and order lady. How about you?
I am, but in this situation, I mean, when somebody gets a felony on their record, it is a lifelong sentence. It affects everything. And believe me, I empathize completely with victims of car break-ins. I am the victim of a car break-in myself, but it's a property crime. It is a nuisance. I just don't think it's worthy of a felony charge to do this to someone long term. And then you want to you start peeling the onion away. You know, the headline, 22, suspects charged with felonies. It's a great headline, and it makes people say, yes, they're held accountable. But I guarantee you, we're going to go down the road, and these are going to be pled down. They're going to be first-time offenders in there, all kinds of things, and it's not going to end up like that. At least I hope.
Well, that's the system, though. And first of all, I think good for Wesley Bell that he's putting out there that we're not going to just lay down. And as far as what the law ought to be, vandalism in general is a Class A misdemeanor. And that's just one notch below like a Class E, I think it is. Felony is the lowest felony. I think that breaking in a car, and there's as you said, financial thresholds. And I'm guessing that breaking into a car arises serious enough to get to a Class E felony. To your point, I think most people, almost everyone that would be, say, a first offender, a kid doing a non-violent break-in is going to get it pled down. So they're not going to have their lives ruined. That'd be very unlikely. I think Wesley's doing the right thing by getting out there the message that we're not going to put up with it. Of course, he didn't write the laws making it a felony or a misdemeanor. But I think that, yeah, it's a serious problem in St. Louis County, and probably more serious than people are talking about. And it's all over. It's also St. Charles County. It's not just St. Louis County. There's so much focus on crime in the city. This is a big deal, and I think it's right for him to do it.
All right, Bill, Wendy?
Agreed. I think it's a felony.
I said when they were making the law that I think this is going to all fall apart when they make the first few arrests, and you have some 17-year-old kid looking at a felony. But I agree with you guys. It'll all get pled down.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's a bit extreme until I go out here after the show. My car is
Maybe by a tornado.
You're so honest. Good for you.
All right. Hey, well, as you said, like stormy night, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. And let's move on to the letters. I worked as a busy hospital nurse for 20 years. It was a high-pressure, many times life-and-death job. I worked 3 12-hour shifts per week. If thousands of nurses can do it, so can cops. That from Joan Wright in Collinsville. I worked for St. Louis EMS from 1984 to 1989. For the last 2 years, we were forced to work 12-hour shifts. The reasoning behind it was because everyone else was doing it. We lost a lot of great, highly skilled paramedics. And that from Mike Grady in the city of St. Louis. You can write us at Donnybrook, care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Send us a tweet to #DonnybrookSTL and an email to Donnybrook and it went away, so I'm sorry. And you can go to your favorite podcast spot and find us there. Thank you, Christine Byers, for sitting in with us today. And Wendy and Bill are going to be discussing early education on Next Up. I hope I did a commendable job. I hope this was a commendable show.
And these hats will be available.
Oh, yes. Oh, real quick. I can't reach my. You can get your, yeah. All right. We still got some tickets left. All right. There we go. So, June the 9th. Be there.
9
Thank you.
PBS.org.